admit I tried to get back into real shoes today. I know it's my issue, not anybody else's. After breaking my toe, it's enough time. And I was so proud of myself. I walked around for 5 minutes. I did the prayer in my real shoes, and then my toe started to hurt. So I'm back in the flip-flops. I'm not happy about that, but I'm learning to surrender. So. And like John said, that we're talking this month, we've started a new theme, the courage to commit. Last week we talked all about commitment and about how that's something that supports us in strengthening our relationship to the divine. And I've been thinking about it all week because I ended my talk last week with the idea that we were going to Marie Kondo our minds. You know, like I said, that this, you know, she's the crazy clean out lady her book's really popular, and it's The Art of Japanese Cleaning or something. I forgot what the book is, but we're talking about taking all the gunk and all the junk and everything that we've been accumulating in our life and letting it go. And so what my experience of that this week was, I actually did 4 closets under my bed, my office, and the craft closet, and the wrapping paper, and I have 5 bags of garbage to get rid of, which is so funny. And 4 bags went to the recycler, and 5 bags went to the garbage, and I was like, okay, well, I'm in the theme of it, so here we go, you know. But it was committing to it. That's what the energy behind it. I kept asking myself, why am I doing this? And it was the committing to getting to what we're getting to here. So stepping into that, committing to be who we want to be and to step on that path. So I'm excited about what's happening, and we'll see what happens this week. If I did that last week, who knows what's going to happen with this one. So today it's walking the path. Now I titled it, and I was starting to do my process and my work on it, and then all of a sudden I realized after I had sent the title to Diane to print, it had gone to print, that I have used this title before. I realized, whoops, I remembered. I was like, oops, I used this before, whoopsie. And then I realized that last year's theme, this was the whole theme for last year, was walking the path. And I was like, how am I going to put a whole year into one talk? Oh, that's not what we're doing. And so I was going to change the whole thing and get Diane all mad at me, which I was not going to do, and to change it. And so then I realized that this was truly what I wanted to talk about today, because we have to commit to walking our path. We have to commit to ourselves, and we have to commit to our life. And so I was thinking about it, and I was remembering that I'm inspired in people who hike. Who hikes here? I know there's a few in the room. People who hike, yeah, I know. Okay. So I'm inspired by you because I am not a hiker. I did one hike in Montana once, and I will tell that story another day. But it was not fun. But when I first got together with my husband was a hiker. And he and his eldest daughter used to go and do these great hikes. And they did Half Dome, and they did Mount Whitney, and I sat at home with a baby. And was like, okay, you go hike, you know? And, but then I got really interested and inspired by the fact that they could do this, that there are people who do this. And there's some in the room who are hikers who've been in my classes, and I'm always asking them about the process of it and how you do it, because something happens when you go on a hike, right? When you have to commit to doing it, especially if it's a challenging one. Because at first when I heard about hiking, I'll say, what, it's just walking in the woods? Like, okay, hiking. Okay. What's the big deal? But I started to realize that it's not just walking in the woods or on a trail. When you're hiking, you have to commit to every step. You have to commit to following the path. You have to commit and be 100% in, or you're not going to get there, right? And it takes a lot of effort and energy and focus, especially when your legs start to turn to jello. And then you keep going, and then you get to the place where your feet feel like bricks. And you still have to take the next step. And you have to still keep going. And so it's challenging to stay with it long enough to commit to it, and it's almost a surrender to it, right? There's almost a surrender to that. And I understand, I've talked to people about who they get in the rhythm, and they get focused, and they're connected to their breathing and all of that. But what is at the core of it is commitment, because in any one moment you can turn around and walk away. And what I was thinking about was how committed you need to be to get to that place where you get on the switchbacks going up the mountain and just continue each step. And then when you get to the place where you're walking along a path and there's a cliff where there's a chance that if you put your foot down in the wrong place, you could tumble down a mountain, right? But then what happens is you continue, you focus, you stay, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, and there's someone in the room who's done a hike where maybe oxygen gets to be a challenge, right? Like there's a moment where you have to be conscious of your breath. I was telling my husband one of our favorite movies is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And there's a scene where he's hiking in the Himalayas, and for some reason he has cell service. It's a movie, whatever. But he's talking to someone, and he says to the guy on the phone, listen, I need to make better oxygen choices now, so I'm sorry, I can't talk to you, and he hangs up with him, right? And so, but there are moments where we have to focus so clearly on something, and in that situation, it's on life with the next breath, right? But then what happens? What happens is you keep going, and you get to the summit. You get to that place where you see the vista, that you can pause for a moment and you can behold the glory and the magnificence of wherever you're headed to, right? Of whatever that view is, of whatever that peak is, whatever that spot that you've tried to get to, and you take a moment and you take in the accomplishment of all that it took for you to get there, and you take a breath, and then what happens? You got to turn around and go back and do the whole thing all over again. Right? And it's not that easy going down. It's actually harder going down than it is going up. Because you have to come back all the way down from that, not only that tired place, but that transformed place. So you may come back down that trail and back into your life, and everything may look the same. You walked the same path down that you walked up. Nothing's changed. The trees are still the same. The creek that you went by is still the same. Maybe the animals that are hanging out are still the same, but you're not. You have been changed. You have been transformed because of the journey. That's what I'm talking about in terms of the spiritual path. It's the same thing in our spiritual life. Something will come up, a challenge will show up along the road of our life. We'll have to deal with it, we'll navigate it, we'll experience it. We have to keep going through it sometimes, no matter what it is. Again, let's put it in the perspective of health, of finances, of relationship, of some personal crisis. Whatever that is for you, you go through it, you have to navigate it, you have to figure it out, and sometimes it takes a lot. We want to get out of pain. And so we try to get through the problems or the challenges as fast as possible. Pain is a big motivator. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we'd like. And we have to be with it long enough to get to the place where the transformation happens. That's our summit. And the same thing happens. What happens in a personal experience, you get through it, you take a breath and you feel the surrender, right? Sometimes it feels like something's literally been lifted off your shoulders when you get through one of those challenges, right? Give me a nod if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I got a few of them. So that when you get to that place where you're like, oh, look at and you turn around and you say, look where I've come. And what happens? You keep going. We keep going in our life. And our life may look the same. We may still have the same job, and we may still have the same relationship, and we may still navigate our days in the same way. But the truth is that you're transformed. You are not the same. You are not the same person that started the journey. And so walking the spiritual path is about allowing that spiritual transformation to happen through the experiences of our lives. Not fighting it, not avoiding it, not pretending it's not happening, but being present enough, God's calling, to allow for life to bring you to where you want it to go, to where it wants you to go. Sorry. That's what happened. I got it. Okay, so that we are walking the path to allow life to bring us to where it wants to go. Now, I'm not talking about some entity outside of us. This is not some part of you. This is not God up on a cloud. This is the greater part of you that is beyond your ego, beyond your sense of self, beyond your personality, that knows your greatness, that is going to align life to give you the opportunities to show your truth, to realize how strong you are, to realize how much you've got to give, and sometimes it feels like you're being stretched like a bow, right? But it stretches you like a bow so you can fly like the arrow. That's what the spiritual path is about. So this week, and as I was, and I was thinking about the other is the old Zen concept of before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right? It's not that the specifics of our life changes, but it's the quality and the way that we relate to life. That's what transforms, that's what changes. And so when we commit to walking through this life as a spiritual path, when we commit to seeing this spiritual adventure of your soul, when you commit to seeing it that way, all the quality of your life changes, and all the different ways that you interact with the different sections, different parts of your life, that's different. Your experience of it is different, and it's all your own perception. It's all within you, which is such a powerful, freeing concept for so many people, that we have the power to make the change in our life. We have the ability, we have the capabilities to shift those things that we think can't be shifted. I was reading something this week, I'm already going on a tangent. I was reading something this week that said that miracles are only phenomena that we haven't figured out how to explain yet, right? If we think back to, let's say, 1st century Middle East, so the time of Jesus, if we were walking in the time of Jesus, right, if you take someone from that time and we bring them up to current time and give them an iPhone. Wait, what, Now, whereas that, they just didn't know that was the technology and the capability and the possibility alive at that time to be able to even use a phone or to communicate in any way. Yes, it was there. But they would call that a miracle. I can't wait to see the things that we are going to call miraculous, that we call miraculous now, that they're going to be able to explain. So the idea is that there is possibility and potential there that we have no idea, we don't give credence to because we think we figured it all out. We're very smart people. Our scientists and everybody, and I'm not digging any of it, because it's an unfoldment, it's an evolution. And so when we change our way of thinking about life as being purposeful, rather than just the image of the little boat out in the middle of the ocean without a rudder or a motor. You could be between the fact that you have a part to play in this, or that you don't. But you can't walk 2 roads. You can't hike 2 paths at the same time. You're either going to walk the path of life happening to you, or you're going to co-create it. You're going to participate in it and be excited about what comes forward. I heard of a concept a few weeks ago that I started reading about, and I wanted to share with you, that really spoke to me. And it's nothing new, it's not any real new information, but it's something that the way that it was put together, I was really excited because I think it's got great possibility and potential for us to look at life differently. So I thought I'd do a little teaching today and explain this to you. It's called the Karpman Drama Triangle. And it was created by a man named Stephen Karpman. And it's a social model of human interaction. And so the idea here is they use it in conflict a lot, and conflict resolution. But what I think is that this model is something that we get stuck in. When we get stuck in seeing the world through this perspective of this triangle that I'm going to explain to you in a second, then we get stuck in the human interaction, and we cannot pop up or rise into living a spiritual life. Really, truly embodying it. And so what the Karpman triangle, the drama triangle is this. I need a little graph for you. Let's see. Okay, so this is a triangle. There's the victim on the bottom, there's the victim, there's the hero, and there's the villain. Okay? And so this is the story of any good drama, right? This is the story of any great movie. That there's a victim, that there's a villain who's persecuting them, and then there's the hero that comes in and saves them, right? In the cape. right? But this is a model that's operating, and psychologists say that, and this was alarming to me, that like 90% of our culture, our population, is living in victim consciousness. And so what that means is that the victim is the one who's helpless. The victim is the one that something has happened to them. The victim is the one that can't figure out what to do or how to handle anything. They're stuck. And they're being persecuted, right, by the villain. And anyone could be the villain, right? But the villain is someone who has a sense of control of how it should be, right? And again, you can think about let's do Star Wars. Are you surprised? Let's do Star Wars, right? Okay, so the villain in this would be the dark side of the Force, right? And so they have the dark side of the Force has this idea of how that they should control and that they should have power, and that their motivation is about keeping someone else down, right? And so then you have the hero. Woo! You have the hero, right? But in this situation, this isn't someone who's come to raise you up. This is someone who's come to save you. And all they want to do is save you. They want to fix it. They're the fixers, right? And so in this dynamic, if you're living in this dynamic, and of course, we need to realize that the persecutor, the villain, doesn't think that they're a villain, right? They think they're doing good. And the hero thinks that they're doing good, but they're not really. And the victim is the one who's just sitting there letting life happen to them. Follow? Okay, so what happens is that the hero doesn't end up making anything better because they're just keeping the victim broken, in a place of broken consciousness. Letting them know that they can't fix their life. Letting them know that they don't have the capabilities, that they don't have the understanding, that they don't have the talents to be able to get out of their situation, so they're going to have to be saved over and over and over again. And as we know, when we live in a certain consciousness, what happens? We create more of it. And so the victim is in victim consciousness in perpetuity, basically, right? And the hero feels good about themselves because I'm saving the world, I'm fixing it for them, and they have their desire to help, which is true and pure, ends up being a self-righteousness. I'm right, that's wrong. And then there's the villain or the persecutor who just thinks, well, this is wrong, this is how it's supposed to be. Again, the villain doesn't think they're a villain. And so this triangle continues. Can you see how that would sustain itself and perpetuate itself and keep operating? And so the idea is this: where in your life are you the victim? Where in your life are you the hero? And where in your life are you the persecutor? I'm not going to call you a villain because I don't think you're a villain. But each of us has parts of ourselves that think that we're in this role. And as long as we are continuing to perpetuate that idea that something in life could be done to me, I'm living in victim consciousness. So I can't walk a spiritual path and live in victim consciousness. The two of those paths are not connected. You can't walk two paths. And so if there's a place in your life that you're holding on to the fact that you have been wronged, then you are staying stuck. And the idea here is, how do we get out of this? Because the whole concept here is how we pop out of this. And as I've been contemplating this, I've been thinking a little bit about how not only it operates in my own life and in the lives of people that I've been partnering with and journeying with, but I have an idea that this is why our culture's stuck in the place that we're at. We can't get past being hurt. We can't get past trying to fix it. We can't get past our own righteousness. And so because those things are operating, that's why we've got this big division and this difficulty in just being together from that deep place of the heart. And so if we can do that, if we can transcend it, if we can transform this in some way, we can move beyond that sense of separation. But my goal today is just for us to start to look at it so we can do it in our own life. Let's fix the world another day. So what happens for us to get out of this is we have to rise. We have to rise in consciousness to realize that we are one with something greater. We have to rise to know that this life is for us, not against us. And we need to move into a place of expanded understanding that we are empowered to make a shift and a change when we're ready, on a grand scale. And you start by realizing that we can shift the way that we are relating to the challenges in our lives. So what happens is this, it moves. The victim becomes the creator. Remember, you are a co-creator of your life. You, with the divine that has brought forth the whole entire universe, is alive within you, and through our mind, through our understanding, through our beliefs, through our word, through our lives, we get to create something new. And then the persecutor becomes a challenger. So when you feel like somebody is doing something to you, what it's doing is it's calling you to grow. It's calling you to move out of your limited way of seeing. It's calling and see what is in this for me, to know, to learn, to expand my life. These challenges come to us and come up to find a deeper understanding of the power that you are, of the strength that you have, of the understanding of the creativity of whatever it is. It's alive right within you, but like a muscle, we haven't worked them very much. And life is saying, hey, it's time to start exercising your faith. It's time to start exercising your creativity. It's time to start exercising your creative power and creating what you want. That's what those who we would think are the villains are actually here for our good. Now, we might not like it, and I'll tell you the truth, it does feel sometimes like someone's really out to get us. And they may think they're out to get you. They may think that they're being the villain or being vindictive or being, exacting revenge for something. Everybody's got their own story and way of relating to this, right? But that doesn't mean you have to buy it. Even if it's their conscious intention, it's not the truth. The spiritual truth is that everything we experience is there for our growth. And so even if someone says, I'm out to get you, right? I'm going to get you, in whatever way it is, it's not about that. We need to see through the spiritual eye, through the spiritual view, that these challenges come up to support us. So then the hero becomes the coach. And I love that because the difference between the hero and the coach is the coach sees you as whole. The coach knows that you can do it yourself. You just need a sounding board. The coach knows that you have capabilities that they don't even know about, and that you definitely don't know about, but they're willing to dig in with you and walk the path. So instead of rescuing you, instead of keeping you limited, instead of keeping you in the problem, a coach is someone who's going to help you rise. Can you see how the difference in this? Right? And can you see how this operates a lot in our personal dynamics? I was like, my mind was like blown when I heard this. And when I started to really sit with it and deepen it, what I saw is that it's a psychological concept of how to deal with conflict. But the truth is, the way to really do it is to connect with spirit. We need to take it a step beyond the secular into that spiritual understanding that when we really connect and commune with the divine, when we really understand our life and our light, then we are able to pop out of that other concept. So I'm going to go back to our pretty picture here. There. And we rise through our faith. And so faith is that muscle. And we don't just have it. You don't just have faith. I recently was visiting a friend's church. I went to a Catholic Mass. I hadn't been in a long time, and it was really fun to do that. On one of my Sundays off, we went on the East Coast. We went to a very traditional Catholic Mass. And I have to say that I truly believe that there's something for everyone in every religious path. That if it speaks to you and it serves you in being a better person in the world, I've got nothing to say about the other religions. I do honor all paths to God. And I have to say that one of the things they kept saying over and over again was that faith is a gift from God. Faith isn't a gift from God. I don't agree with that. Faith is not a gift from God. Faith is how we relate to God. Faith is the definition of our relationship with God. If you have a lot of faith, it means that you've got a really deep communing relationship with the One. And if you don't have a lot of faith, you haven't spent a lot of time building it. And so again, it's the muscle. And life is going to batter you with situations to have you deepen that experience. And you can either just get tossed and turned in the middle of that experience, or you can rise into your knowing that there is something greater happening. And that is what happens. That's what shifts the little rudderless boat to the power boat with a motor that's going to take you through any wave that comes. It's your faith. And we deepen our faith through our spiritual practice, through our time contemplating and practicing the presence, feeling that there's that place within you, that there's something greater than you, spending time every day communing with that, sitting in meditation for a period of time, connecting to your prayer work, knowing, seeing Spirit unfolding around you, practicing that. We practice that so that when these things happen, we are already prepared to know that it's a spiritual experience. I'm loving the Eric Butterworth book this month, and he reminds us that when the experience of anxiety or concern comes, we need to say no to it. We need to say no to the challenge and yes to God. Literally, he says, say no. You know, when you're faced with a challenging situation, you just got to say, this isn't the truth. No, this isn't happening. And yes to God, because what you know about God, you need to affirm. He goes on to say that the danger is when we let our fear and our worry simmer in our minds. And I thought that was a great way of putting it, because it simmers, doesn't it? Your worry and your fear just starts to bubble and stays there unless we do something about it. We need to be stern with ourselves. We need to commit to knowing the truth and take action. We need to stand up and speak the word peace to the storms of human thought. And he goes on to tell the story of Jesus and his disciples on the stormy Sea of Galilee from Mark 4. He says that Jesus was sleeping in the bow of the boat when the storm came up. And the disciples, what happened was the disciples woke him up. They were afraid, and they woke him up and said, hey, Jesus, aren't you afraid that we're going to die? And Jesus gets up and he looks around at what's happening, and he stood up, and the wording is he rebuked the wind. And he said unto the sea, peace, be still. And the wind ceased. And the waters calmed. And then he turned to his disciples, and sorry for my modification here. He said, hey, why are you guys so afraid? What's up with this? Where's your faith? Butterworth goes on to say that this dramatic story reveals the power of the law of agreement. Jesus was the master of the situation because he was the master of his own thoughts. He agreed with God always. He kept himself in tune in a state of spiritual unity with God. This was accomplished by the discipline of frequent periods of meditation. Thus, in a crisis, he was prepared because he was, as Butterworth says, pre-prayered. Okay, so what we would call that being prayed up. We're talking about being prayed up. So if you are consistently and constantly aligning yourself with the truth, if you are communing with the one and feeling the presence as the truth of your life, and if you are looking and seeing the unfoldment of life as a spiritual unfoldment, in all ways, in all areas, when a challenge hits, you're going to be ready because you have already done the work. But think about if maybe, I go to church sometimes, and I like the way they pray, and it feels kind of good, and I like to sing, maybe a little, or a little bit, right? So what happens when something comes up in your life, you go into panic mode, right? Wait, well, how does this work? Wait, what did they say in church? I can't remember. Okay, oh my God, how does that happen, And it's so easy to get swept up in the challenge and not be on your center. We are being called to be prayed up. We are being called to be those pillars of divine knowing. We are called to walk the path of a spiritual life. It's about living and moving and having your being in the oneness. It's what all mystics taught. There's only one, and you're part of it. So when we live in this, when we step into that place, we become the light. We become the light of the world. We move in our lives, and you light other candles by it. You light other lights. You are an inspiration to those. And like the reading today about the salt, you become that salt that spreads this divine knowing to others and to the world. We are being called to do that. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your lights shine so before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So in committing to live a spiritual life, we're committing to shine our light. We are committing to do our work and be the presence for our own selves and for the world. And when we do that, we are not pretending that we don't go to that weird church down around the corner. We're not afraid to speak peace or truth in a situation where people are fighting over what's happening in the political realm of the world. We are not afraid to speak truth to something that does not look like what you believe. We are strong in our knowing that all is well because God is here. And so especially in this period of time when we're heading into something, I'm holding it for peace. We are called to rise. We are called to walk the spiritual path and not be ashamed of it. This is what the divine is wanting from all of us. And so when we are the light, we cannot walk two roads. We cannot proclaim to live a spiritual life and then worry about the effects of the world. We cannot live a spiritual life and then call ourselves a victim. Now again, I'm going to put an asterisk on that. I'm not saying that that people have not been victimized, but you have a choice to live in it or to not. But we are called to step into that new place of knowing. And as the hikers along the spiritual path, we are called to be conscious of every step, even when it's hard, to focus on the presence and do our best along the path through the rough patches, to remember that God is with every step. And so it is.